Good morning. The time is now 9:30 a.m. and a quorum of the board is present. State Board of Education meeting of March 14, 2017 is called to order. First item is approval of agenda in order of priority. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. FYI, there are information folder items in front of you. One is information on nominations to the Special Education Advisory Committee, and two, NASA STEM Challenge Showcase invitation. No action is required on either of those items, but you do have them in front of you. Introduction of State Board of Education members and guests. At this time, Marilyn, will you introduce members of the State Board of Education, please?
Sure. I'll start on my left, and you've just been listening to the state superintendent, who's also chairman of the board. His name is Brian Whiston. And one of the co-presidents of the board is Richard Ziley. He's from Dearborn. The other co-president is from Rochester Hills. Her name's Cassandra Albrecht. Michelle Fecto is the board's secretary. She is on her way from Detroit. Nikki Snyder from Pinckney is a board member. Tracy Hordisky is from Kennewa Hills. She's this year's Teacher of the Year, and she has a seat at the board table. Across the table is Tyler Sawyer. He is from the governor's office. Eileen Weiser will be seated next to him. She's on her way. She's board member from Ann Arbor. Lupe Ramos-Montini, board member from Grand Rapids. Pamela Pugh is on her way. She's the NASB delegate, which is the board's associate.
Nikki's NASB delegate.
I'm sorry.
She's treasurer.
It's okay.
Nikki, I
And you
thought I
did
was
say
gonna-
that.
No, non-treasurer.
Did you?
Pam is on her way. Pamela Pugh, she's from Saginaw. And here's Eileen Weiser. There's some traffic jams in the area, so.
Actually, we got our power back last night just after I went to bed, so our alarm clocks were unusual.
We're glad you're here, Eileen.
Thank you. I'm glad I am too.
And Tom McMillan, he's the board's treasurer. He's from Rochester Hills. I'm Marilyn Schneider. I'm the state board executive.
Now we'll introduce the newest member of the Michigan Department of Education. I want to welcome Sheila Alice to her first meeting as Chief Deputy Superintendent. Welcome. Glad you are here. Thank you. And now we have some introductions of some new employees. And Kyle, I think you're going to do them all.
All right. Well, Susan Broman is stuck in Detroit trying to get back from Boston. So we have two new employees to the Office of Great Start. Lindsay Walmers. Can you please stand and just tell a little about your work here at the department?
I'm in the Office of Special Education and Programs and Accountability to investigate state complaints. Spent 7 years as an emotional damage.
Introducing the audience when I'm done.
If you want.
That's what we normally do.
Christine Wirish. I pronounced that right?
That's her.
Oh, I didn't see
Good
that.
morning.
I work in the Office of Great Start, as you said. I am the grant contract manager for the Race to the Top, and I will also be assisting with the Child Care and Development Fund. Prior to coming to this department, I have 20 years of banking experience, most recently as an internal auditor, and I've also been an investigator and a bank examiner for the federal government, and I've also worked as an investigator with the former Department of Community Health. Thank you.
And then in my division, we have Linda Isaacson with the Library of Michigan.
Yep, Linda Isaacson from the Library of Michigan. I am a financial analyst, and I basically help the library with their financial spendings and paying the bills. Prior to coming to education, I have spent 10 years working for the Department of Treasury.
Angela Bowen with the Office of School Support Services.
Good morning. I am secretary with School Nutrition for Nick Drusell. Prior to this, I worked for a charter school management company for just shy of 10 years doing compliance and project management.
And finally, Kyle Kirkby with the Office of School Support Services as well.
Hi, my name is Kyle Kirkby. I work in the Coordinated School Health and Safety Program, and I provide support services for school nutrition and HIV education. Prior to coming to the state of Michigan, I have a deep history in the nonprofit world, including working at the Greater Lansing Food Bank.
All right, did I miss any new employees in the room, or did we get them all? All right, let's welcome the new employees. Now we'll ask audience members to introduce themselves, and we'll start here. Marty?
Hi, I'm Marty Ackley. I'm the Director in the Office of Public and Governmental Affairs here at the Department of Education.
What, Wendy?
Wendy Sadab, Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals.
I'm Chelsea Martinez with the secondary school. principal.
Linda Forward with the Department of Education.
Dave Carey with the trade grant and MAISA.
Also, Wayne Risa.
Terrence Lunger, Superintendent of Calhoun Intermediate School District.
Judy Pritchett from Coma ISD.
I'm Kayla from Wayne State. Summer,
Colin Moser, Wayne State.
Anne Marie Mapes,
Michelle Reinhardt, MDE. Ali with Wayne State. Osama with Wayne State.
Joanne Hopper, contractor with Indeed. Summer Frank with Trade and MAISA.
Andrew Rock, on behalf of NHA. Tom Knight, MDE.
Back here in the cor-
Performance Aid.
And if we could come up here.
Flavor with Gonward.
Brian McVicker with MLive.com.
Fran Lewis, facilitator for Michigan Special Advisory Committee.
Paul Rice, NWEA. Steve Best with MDE.
Kyle Grant, Michigan Department of Education.
And Sheila Alice, MDE.
All right. Welcome to everybody to today's meeting. If you plan to offer public comment, please complete a form and get it to Marilyn here. Forms are available on the table just outside of the boardroom, and they must be submitted prior to the beginning of the portion of the meeting devoted to public comment. Public comment will begin immediately following the lunch break, tentatively scheduled for about 1:15 today. Please be here at that time to make sure you have the opportunity to comment. Next, we go to the Committee of the Whole, discussion items. Next item on the Committee of the Whole agenda is presentation on State Education Technology Plan. This is the 2017 revision of the State of Michigan Tech Plan, Michigan Roadmap, which was last revised in 2010. The proposed revisions aligns with the state's Education Technology Plan goals and strategies within the top 10 and 10 and the National Education Technology Plan, Future Ready. This sets forth a clear vision for transforming education through technology and supports the top 10 and focus areas of learner-centered supports, effective education workforce, strategic partnership, and systematic infrastructure. Presenters are Linda Forward, Director of Education Improvement and Innovation, Michelle Rybrandt, Director of 21st Century Learning, Anne Marie Mapes, Technology Planning Coordinator and Communications Consultant. Linda, please.
Thank you. Good morning. We're delighted to bring you this technology plan. One of the things that I think is important about it is the enthusiasm we found across the state for putting something like this together when it's no longer a requirement. Usually when there's no longer a requirement, the joy is, okay, something we don't have to do. We've had great help from partnerships around the state in putting this plan together and have some support that you'll be seeing about later. I'd like to draw your attention first to the quote that comes out of the top 10 and 10, goals and strategies, that no matter where students live, they should have access to the same high-quality educational opportunities as any other student in the state. And likewise, teachers across the state should have equitable opportunities to learn and excel in their profession, no matter where they live and teach. These are key concepts that we have to address, and one of the mechanisms to do this is through the technology. Technology is one of the steps we're taking in education now and moving forward with, and this piece, it becomes very important. One of my mental models that I have is a group of students up in the northern part of our state where they do not have access to technology at home, and they have homework to do. They do have electronic devices, and they are sitting underneath the state police pole where there is a connection, and it's snowing, and they're in the car, and they're getting their homework done. And so this has to be a partnership with education, with also with business, because we need to get those lines run so that the children can stay home and do their homework. But the fact that we can provide this kind of structure for students across the state and for teachers is important. This is a plan to help us get toward that, and I hope that you'll see, first of all, through this video that we're going to share with you, some of what we see that could happen in education across this state. And I have to apologize, the speakers are in our system in this room are not working well. We've put in some other speakers, and we're going to hope that through microphones we can get enough volume on it.
It comes down to the idea that it's not just about what the teacher does in the classroom, but what the teacher
can support students in aspiring to do through the classroom? How do we give them what they need, step out of their way, and let them do the brilliant work that we know exists in their brain?
Personalized learning to me means that every single student has a pathway that makes sense to them, that's connected to their long-term goals and aspirations.
I guess you're not running in a track anymore, you're more running on a field, and you choose which direction you run to.
Let's meet them where they're at and frame the teacher's role as all about facilitating an experience where each of those kids can make real meaningful progress.
They are more center stage. They're not students who are sitting at their desks waiting to have like an education delivered to them. They're doing group work, they're doing hands-on projects.
Last year in math, we had a project called event planning. I never knew math could be so fun, and the other day someone actually asked me if they would help me plan some surprise party for their dad. And I was like, I know exactly how to do that because I knew how to create a spreadsheet and put in everything that we needed to buy and our budgets and all that kind of stuff.
We do a lot of group work in our projects, and especially because we help our peers out.
And this was a really pleasant surprise is how good the students have gotten at collaborating with each other and supporting each other.
I think that the thing that surprises most people is about how the teachers aren't always in front teaching you stuff. You're teaching yourself.
You can kind of work at your own pace, because at my old elementary school, there was, we couldn't go ahead, even though I wanted to go ahead, so much.
I've learned that I'm smarter than I think I am. I'm more responsible than I think I am. I can stay focused easier.
Instead of saying, this is the curriculum that you should learn, it was, okay, let me get to know a little bit more about who you are, what you like, what you want, and then let me figure out how this curriculum can work for you.
That's just a very human desire, is to be known and to be seen and to be accepted for who we are. And that is really at the heart of a personalized learning community.
That is the most important role of adults, I believe, in any school. But we have the structures here in this model to be able to let teachers actually do that.
Even though they're kind of owning the process, you're still owning the space and the environment, you're still supporting kids and helping kids. So in some ways, my job is very different than before. In some ways, it's exactly the same as it's always been.
Personally, I'm doing much deeper and better teaching, much more purposeful teaching, much more focused teaching, and much more differentiated teaching.
My job as a teacher is to help students find their voice and then learn how to use it. So I want them to have the habits that are going to facilitate that happening, like grit and perseverance and knowing what to do if people tell you no.
And when we think about personalized learning, it's not the computer, it's not the PLP tool that we have. All those are great tools. What it is a willingness to say, I don't know everything you need, John, but I can ask the question to find out.
Pushing myself, that's what I think I'm gonna take away. Because I think college is gonna be real tough, but this school is teaching me how to push myself to the limit, to the max.
Not all square roots are gonna be rational.
It feels really good because I learned all that, and I had a lot of patience with myself, a lot of improvement from 6th grade, and I'm so proud of myself.
Actually, to be honest, before I came here, I did not think I was really gonna go to college and all that. I was gonna go to high school, get a job.
Coming here kind of showed me that you are something that you can be whatever you want to be, and nobody can really tell you can't, and it's just all up to you.
No matter where you start, you can always become great.
I can do anything I put my mind to. Nothing is impossible. That if I just work and study hard, that I can get to where I wanted to go.
That vignette is one of a system that's being put together across the country. You see different people doing different things. The nice thing is here in Michigan, we have several school districts that are already working towards personalized learning, and technology is a piece of that. The competency-based models, the personalized-based models, we need technology in order to achieve that goal and have what's happening there happen across the district and across the state. So this plan has been developed collaboratively, and Michelle and Anne Marie are going to share with you what they've done, who they've worked with, and what's inside the plan.
So this has really been an 18-month process almost to bring together some of the groups that you see on the screen there. We have teachers, we have administrators involved in our very large panel, And we've split up and worked on the individual goals that we'll go through in a second. But this is really, as Linda mentioned, because the tech plan is no longer required, we were really pleased to see the enthusiasm for the groups staying on board. Some of them have been involved in prior Michigan plans, and then really looking to the future to establish this 4-year plan and get us on the right pathway. We've committed to meeting throughout these 4 years to update the plan. Part of the problem with technology is it changes so quickly. This really is very much, I know we always say it, but a living plan that will come back together and modify and celebrate the successes we've made against the goals and then continue. We've made a really conscious effort to align our work with the top 10 and 10 because this was happening parallel to the creation of the top 10 and 10 strategies and goals and activities. This really was a nice complement, and we wanted to make certain that the state technology plan, the roadmap, was aligned closely to all the goals in the top 10 and 10, and this is just a little diagram of how that is aligned. Very specifically, we're going to go through some of the alignments. For those of you that are, all of you know the top 10 and 10 plan, at the learner-centered supports level, that's where a lot of the plan lies. So the learner-driven, personalized, deep and applied, competency-based, and technology-enabled equity. These are the things that thread throughout our plan, and they're apparent in all of the goals, but they're most apparent at the teaching and learning levels. So starting with our first goal, learning, you can see what that is about, but it really is aligned to the top 10 and 10, and specifically those learner-centered. But as you can see from this, there's a big attention to formal and informal learning places, and then also that creation of global citizens. It very much aligns to our career and college readiness goals of ability to use technology, to problem solve, and to communicate well. Those are the three that it really ultimately supports more than almost any other. So if we look at a specific some of the specific strategies, I'm going to turn it over to Anne Marie.
So these are all skills that students need to be successful in a 21st century workforce. And as Michelle mentioned, that after school time, how do we acknowledge students for that effort there? So for example, with the badging that First Robotics has begun, really allowing students to have that acknowledgement for those competencies that they've gained through that work. We now have over 600,000 devices in schools because of the Technology Readiness Infrastructure Grant and the device purchasing there. So moving beyond test ready, what can students now do with these devices? We really want to make sure that it's about the learning, not just the technology, but we know that 8 in 10 students say that technology would really make a difference in learning.
At the teacher level, you can see our goal as it's outlined on the screen, but this is really, again, back to the top 10 and 10, an area that reinforces that effective education workforce and enhances learner-centered support. Teachers are so much the key to leading this transformation, and as you saw in the video, that making technology kind of ubiquitously available, but then really moving out of the way and let students begin to truly direct their own learning based on some of their interests and future aspirations. So investing in professional learning for teachers in support of the strategies that are outlined here is really key to the success of the plan.
So it's really about personalized learning for educators as well, because we know that one size does not fit all. And where I am in my progress and in my understanding of technology in the classroom might be completely different than somebody else. So we really want to allow those pathways for teachers as well. And we want the professional learning to be meaningful and then lead to instructional improvement. And so we know that teachers need to know how to use technology tools and then use data as well to inform and adjust instruction. Through a teacher survey conducted in the spring of 2016, we found that more than any other professional learning topic, teachers wanted professional development regarding technology and using technology in the classroom.
Our third goal is around assessment, and this is really about leveraging technology to make a seamless, balanced assessment system possible. It supports, within the top 10 and 10, our learner-centered supports, of course, but it's also key to the systemic infrastructure that's being created in Michigan. As you know, Michigan has been very successful in our migration to online assessments. You know, when you compare that to other states, it's been really quite remarkable, and this year we'll be above 95% of schools testing online. And that is just in the past 3 years, so it's been a really dramatic improvement in that ability to seamlessly conduct assessments. That's at the summative level, but in the classroom, at the formative and interim level, there is a lot of activity. Now, as Anne-Marie mentioned, with all the devices that are available, we've really made it possible to do technology-supported, balanced assessment systems in almost every school in Michigan.
So as we go through all these strategies, they have activities below them, and that's really where we get into the work. And so for assessments, we're really looking at building an understanding of assessments and data. And then also you'll see here developing a system wherein teachers can create and revise and remix their own assessments, and helping teachers to understand how to create those assessments and then use them in support of personalized learning. And that also goes back to teaching as well, helping and empowering educators to create content for instruction.
Our fourth goal is around leadership. You can see the highlighted words, transformational and equitable there. This is really about setting the vision for every school in Michigan and how technology can support all efforts. So it's really modeling good behavior by using technology at the leadership level, but then also giving teachers the empowerment and students the empowerment to use technology for their own teaching and learning.
So we know that we need leaders to model technology, but we also need professional learning opportunities for them as well, so that they understand the need for technology in the classroom and that understanding. We want leaders to also support that data-driven culture and align the vision for technology across the district with the school and district improvement plans, as well as any other work that is being done within the district, so that technology is not driving it. It's instruction and learning that's really driving, and then you're coming back and asking what kind of technology would support that.
And lastly is the infrastructure itself. In the past 4 years through the TRIG grant, there's been a lot of work done on networks within schools, broadband access to schools, and then the provision of devices to students and teachers in Michigan. And as Anne-Marie mentioned, that almost 600,000 devices at the student level have been distributed throughout these past 4 years. There's a lot of work being done to develop the state education network and really beef up our general access. And then we'll go on to some of the instructional infrastructure strategies to support those efforts.
So it's really about building a seamless infrastructure so that I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to be able to turn on a computer and have it work. It's providing access anywhere and all the time, so that when I leave the classroom and I go home and I need to do homework, I have access at home. So it's also about having robust broadband. As Michelle mentioned, the state education network that's in development. And then it's not necessarily one-to-one, but it's having a device when I need it. So whether or not that's bring your own device, BYOD, or whether or not it's having a cart accessible in the classroom, having that device wherever I need it for learning. Also, high quality resources, and so creating a system for accessing those high quality resources. Michigan is now a Go Open state, which means we've made a commitment to use open educational resources, and so working on a system for educators to access those resources. And then finally, data, just to ensure that we are working with data and that we are on a common data standard. Some of this work has already begun through the Michigan Data Hubs, and ensuring security and privacy.
So what are our next steps? We're continuing to work with our stakeholder groups. They're coming together again in just next week. But what we're really planning for the next component would be the implementation. And overall, our feedback has been really very positive. We kind of know we're in a good place because we have some that feel it's a little too innovative, we're moving a little too quickly, and others that think we're not moving quickly enough. So judging by all the stakeholder feedback we've had, we think that's a good place to be. We need to put the plan into action, and we do now. Our original group is migrating from a development team into an implementation team. We have new members joining, and so we'll be moving forward to that. And as I had mentioned, we really want to make this not a static plan, but very interactive. We are establishing vignettes, those examples that Linda mentioned around Michigan will be interspersed throughout the website, and so we have great examples of technology use in the classroom, leaders that are really utilizing technology to support teaching and learning. Some of the assessment efforts that are going on locally are phenomenal. So those will be highlighted throughout the dynamic plan. And one of the next steps early on will be to revisit our Michigan Educational Technology Standards for Students, our MET standards that were created in 2009. And as you can imagine, 2009 is ancient history in technology lingo. So we need to update our student standards, and we're looking at the recently released ISTE standards as a kind of a basis for that work. So that would be one thing that we would hope to move forward with in the near future.
Brian?
All right, thank you. Very good report. Questions from the board, please. Eileen and then Cassandra, and then Dr. Z.
So recently I had a chance through the commission to talk with UP educators, and one of the things that they brought up was that they have kids who are riding buses with internet service, with Wi-Fi hotspots for an hour and a half, but when they get home, because cell phone providers did not use the state police towers that the kids are sitting under in cars, to hook up cell phone coverage for the entire UP, that they may not have access to the internet. If they're smart and they use their bus time to do homework and not gaming, then they have a fighting chance when they get home to get things done. But after a long day and a cumulative 3 hours of bus riding, it may not be working that way. Is there any initiative underway to connect with the cell phone providers and use the existing state and police infrastructure?
And not specifically just the state police infrastructure, but the answer is yes. And there are a lot of technologies that are now available. Kajit would be an example of that. So it's either an enabled computer that allows students to connect remotely and through like a cellular phone service, or schools that actually support their students by sending home Verizon cards or other kinds of remote access devices. So we do have that in place, but it really is a philosophy of the district, whether they want to go to that level of service provision. For students that are taking classes at home, that's more typical, but for elementary students going home, we see that a little bit less. There are also a huge amount of library and local community efforts to provide like a free Wi-Fi zone around their communities. And so some of the schools, our students are connecting into those. And we're working a lot on the expansion of those services through partnerships with TRIG, State Education Network, and the Libraries of Michigan. So there are efforts underway to reach those remote communities. Just in the past 5 years or so, there's been a comprehensive mapping done of all communities in Michigan. So we really know now where that service is available and then where it's not. And then it's a matter of whether schools want to get involved in helping to provide those services. And maybe, Anne-Marie, you want to talk about some of the efforts that are underway for the cellular carriers.
Through the FCC, there are certain mobile carriers that have plans that are now available, broadband plans for low-income folks. And so those are through the state. It's $9.95 a month for low-income qualifiers. What we're really concerned about is the in-between. You know, those who don't qualify for that, but can't afford the $60 or $70 dollars a month for broadband.
I think in addition to that, we've been working with DTMB whenever we've met regarding a lot of the work with TRIG about the need to have the private providers lay line all the way to the end so that that person at the far end can access these services. So it's a piece that we continue to work with them on. Of course, it's up to them to make that decision.
And if I can just say one thing and follow up, the thing that concerns me is the I didn't listen to enough conversation with the UP folks to understand how their system works, but if you are depending upon online learning to remediate kids who are not doing well face-to-face in school, then you end up in a situation where you're condemning the kids because it just isn't going to happen.
Right.
And I know that these are district's decisions, but it worries me a bit to not understand whether that's working for everybody. And I commend you for the follow-up that's going on since the grants aren't going out anymore. But this worries me for the state as a whole from the department.
Right.
Thank you, Eileen. Cassandra, then Dr. Z, please.
So beyond the infrastructure piece, I'm wondering what role digital literacy plays in all of this as well. Because having access to information is wonderful, but without the understanding of what information is fact versus fiction, real versus fake, then there's additional issues that come with that. So can you talk a little bit about the digital literacy piece?
Yeah, the big efforts there lie right here on this slide at the educational technology standards. We're really beginning in kindergarten. Students are brought up to speed with that digital literacy and digital citizenship aspects of being really true technology users. So there's also programming through the Attorney General's office that they come into schools and do a lot of things on cybersecurity, and there's some digital literacy associated with that as well. So we're really looking forward to upgrading these so that they are as modern as possible. But the districts themselves also have computer science training happening in the school as part of their curriculum, and more integrated in with the content areas more seamlessly. And that's where that really bolstering of digital literacy comes in. So in ELA class, in science class, in mathematics class, how do you effectively access information and use those technologies?
Also in that work, we see students being asked to make a decision about all these things that you accessed, which of them have merit to be used under a certain set of criteria, and the students are being trained on that criteria, so they can figure out which ones may be fact and which may be fiction, and apply them.
Thank you, Cassandra. Dr. Z, then Tom, please.
I guess I should just come out and say it. I felt somewhat manipulated by this presentation. Obviously, you're selling the sizzle and not the steak. I hear a lot of phrases that sound good. Up to speed, modern as possible, seamlessly. What does any of this mean? There is a lack of concrete facts and figures in this report, which upsets me. We want quality digital content. Well, give us some examples. Who's doing it? Are we buying it from vendors? Are ISDs developing it? What percentage of our students have access to internet? What is the need in our urban or our poverty schools? Who's got it already? Who doesn't have it? There's all these questions. We have a beautiful statement of aspiration. We have kids who tell you what a great time they're having, and it's all attributed to a plan which is only beginning to be implemented, supposedly. I'm not happy. I guess I would like more facts, more figures, and what is not identified is the costs. What is the cost of individualized instruction? There are real limits in terms of money and time which impact the classroom. And if I have 20 kids for 8 hours, if I have 20 kids for 6 hours a day, never do math in public here. I better go back to 8 hours a day here. I can. That means I can give each kid 6 minutes of individualized instruction, or I can give the whole class 3 hours of a talk about the Civil War. So traditionally, schools have always gone towards the. That's why schools have always gone towards the lecture method. Ironically, for the lower achieving students, direct instruction is the most effective. What's not acknowledged here is when kids are doing their activities here, there, and the other thing. The kids that are most handicapped by that are the ADD kids who have trouble concentrating on their thing because they're distracted by what's going on over here, what's going on over there, what's going on over there. So I feel very unhappy that the costs, the differential impact of some of these techniques have not been identified, and the bottom line, when you sell the sizzle and not the steak, you raise expectations, and unless you have an unmitigated success, then you, whatever happens is seen as a disappointment. So I think that it would be much better for presentations like this to give us facts and figures and set realistic expectations rather than accent the optimism and the what do I want to say, the affective appeal of kids having fun.
Thanks, Dr. Z. We can follow up with some more information. Tom, please.
Thanks for your presentation. Obviously, you know, I'm concerned about data privacy, and you mentioned it just in a sentence. So, I mean, I don't want you to go into details, but that is high on your priority list, I assume. And, you know, I guess I really don't know. Once it goes into databases, you know, I also think this has to do also with like credentialing and badges and all these things that I know can be good uses for them, but I also know that there's a certain strain in education that feel that, you know, that public school is here to meet the needs of businesses, and that you know, that they're credentialing for the workforce. And I want to make sure we don't go. I disagree with that. I think we need to hold the child that's well developed and well rounded, and not try to stick them into some pathway early on before 90% of us didn't know what we were going to do while we were in high school, probably. And we probably changed 3 different ways since then. So I just, you know, I think that certainly can be used for good, but I guess I would just, you know, caution how hard, or, you know, what the outcomes and what the direction, and make sure that it's, yeah, I've got concerns about some of the credentialing and badges and where that all goes.
So certainly one second there. So certainly, yeah, we understand that, and we do want to give students credit for work they're doing, particularly if they do it outside of school, so how they can get credit for that. So that's kind of the badging concept, but we'll continue to work with you on that. I don't think it's so much for businesses, it's to really recognize that kids are going above and beyond, and how do we give them some credit and have an understanding that they've done this and they've gained some skills. So I think we agree with that, and we also agree with the data privacy has got to be very key to what we do. Nikki, please.
I have a few specific questions, but before that, I'm just thinking along the lines of if we even just take several steps back and look at reading literacy and our literacy rate in Michigan in certain areas, especially low income. So we already have certain things that are helps in education, like RAS Kids, those types of programs that are available on iPads. And those areas don't even have the technology yet to do that, which is a direct impact on literacy rates or evidence-based reading interventions, if you will, reading intervention specialists. So, you know, I look at this and I go, yeah, there's an idea here, but we haven't even been successful in the idea of reaching them from a reading literacy perspective on a very basic level with something that other school districts have access to. So that's just a comment. But then a few specific questions. So right now with Summit, they offer Basecamp personalized learning plans already, which some school districts are doing. So just based on your knowledge, your working knowledge of Summit, is there a remote satellite that is collecting information, or is it that school district that collects the information?
It depends whether or not the systems that they're operating are locally housed on servers within their building or ISD, or whether they're in the cloud.
Okay.
So that in the cloud.
So there is a remote satellite.
Yeah, there is. And yeah, if it's in the cloud, then there's parental notification requirements, and there's high security in transit and at rest. So there are security measures in place for that. But the districts always have access to the data.
Okay. And do teachers have access to the data? Are they the primary data holder along with the parents?
Yes. And so parents and students have login at the user level, and then the schools have data available at the classroom level for teachers, and then at the grade level and building for administrators.
Okay. Is there a developed consent form that notifies the parents of the data sharing that's happening currently and gives them an opportunity essentially to opt out of data sharing altogether?
There's two things. SIPA is that's like the educational version of HIPAA for medical record security. SIPA is one of the educational privacy measures that it requires that schools notify parents of all of the programs that are used in that school. And then parents can opt out of that.
Okay. Can you provide us with the forms that are available that are given to parents?
Each district has their own forms, so that would be a district level decision about the actual templates that they choose to use.
But you could potentially give us an example of a district or all districts, and we could look at what that looks like. Can a student could essentially participate in this type of curriculum without choosing to share data. They could potentially participate as a student, parent, teacher dynamic. They don't have to share data with Summit. They don't have to share data with the cloud.
That would be a vendor by vendor decision on whether or not their system is flexible enough to not require that aggregate data collection at the classroom or building level. So that would be something that the vendor would have to either have as part of their software or have a modification done at the school district's request.
And then the district would be in charge of negotiating that contract with the vendor.
And I would say if we're pitching an idea this innovative, that should be easily offered by vendors.
We have no problem with that.
Okay, Lupe, please.
Well, I have to say thank you to the three of you for this presentation. There's a lot of things that I liked. I'm not mad. I have to look at the positive things that you brought to the table. And one of the great things that you said was the collaborative effort. It's a collaborative effort, so it's not coming from the three of you, but it's coming from many different sources, and they're very credible sources. So that even reaffirms my acceptance to your presentation today. Also, I like the fact that you're aligning this to the 10 years, because that's the route that we're taking. So this is one of the examples that is taking us there. I love the presentation you gave us with the students. These are the kind of things that we're doing in the west side of the state. Many of our schools are engaged in that model. And so I saw West Michigan in what you presented today, because as I go through the schools, and this is the ultimate goal of all these presentations, to have classrooms looking like the one we saw on the screen. So that was very reassuring to me. Also, you said, and you pointed out that the educators are the key. And so I am a strong proponent of that. Teachers are the heartbeat of any school district. And so if educators or the drivers of your presentation, together with principals and ISDs and all that, educators means everybody. So that was good news to me. And I always like to hear, and I look for who is involved with the work. And if educators and teachers are mentioned, I am very, very happy. Now, you also said at one point that this is open to educational resources, but I didn't quite understand what you were referring to, Anne-Marie.
So open education resources is something that it's rather a new term. This idea of something is open, so it's freely as opposed to just free. So open means that I can retain the rights to something, but then I can pull it down and reuse it. So it's openly licensed, so that anybody can take it down and revise it or remix it, and then redistribute that work. So it's really about the licensing of a piece of content, and then what you can do with it once you access that piece of content, and then exercise those rights.
So the classroom teacher can be teaching some area and think that she or he needs some new materials and wants to go get them. They can go out, pick up these open education resources, bring them down, and then, that have already been created by others, and then they can redo them and set them up so that they align with their lesson plan and the way that they want to present it, bring in other materials if they need to.
Okay. And the last thing, the thing that also grabbed my attention was that you said that it's a living plan. So that means that you can revise it and change it and move it, and so this is just a plan that it's a living plan like me and you, and we change every day, every minute. So I thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a presentation on proposed standards for the preparation of teachers of health and physical education. The standards for the preparation of teacher in health and physical education were updated to improve alignment between educator prep policy in Michigan and the top 10 and 10 strategy goal 3 to develop, support, and sustain a high-quality, prepared, and collaborative education workforce. Upon a board approval, these standards will replace Michigan's current endorsement standards and guide initial teacher preparation in health and physical education. Next steps will be following public comment. Standards will be presented to the board for its approval at the May meeting. Presenters are Sarah Levan, Manager of Professional Prep and Learning, and Sean Kotke, Education Consultant, Professional Prep Services. Sarah and Sean, please.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Dig right in here. Sarah had an idea. How many of you thoroughly enjoyed PE and health in school? Well, all right then.
Nuns are watching.
We'll see how that goes.
I didn't think you were actually going to ask them.
Well, so let's take a look at what we have here. So what's the purpose of these proposed standards? These are teacher preparation standards. Again, these are not K-12 content standards. This is in service of the top 10 and 10 goal of establishing a tightly aligned P20 system to establish a shared vision of knowledge and skills for entry-level teachers in health and PE in Michigan. These standards will guide educator preparation programs as they develop and assess the quality of their teacher preparation programs in these areas. And they will support those institutions that choose to seek national recognition and accreditation for their health and PE programs. So why should we update these now? The first issue is currency. These preparation standards were last approved, or the current preparation standards were approved in 2000. And there is a sense of urgency around that. The field has shifted in both health and PE. Away from a model focused on team sports and study of human anatomy, respectively in PE and health, into more integration of the concepts into personal fitness curriculum, healthy living curriculum, and a focus on individual wellness. So an example of a personalized curriculum, as was invoked in the previous presentation, would be something like a personalized health and wellness curriculum. K-12 assignment and staffing needs are also paramount. As you'll see in the document, and we'll talk about more here, the proposal is to combine the health and phys ed endorsements into a single endorsement field. This will empower our local schools by giving them greater flexibility in making appropriate staffing decisions in health and PE when they can find a teacher that has both credentials and is qualified to teach both things rather than having to seek separate teachers for these items. And then this also supports achievement of the top 10 in 10, not just the creation of an aligned P20 system, but also our goal 3, which develops, support, and sustain high-quality, prepared, collaborative education workforce.
So the overview of the standards development process, this one followed our traditional development process with one minor difference, that the initiation of the revision was brought forward by stakeholders because of what Sean mentioned, the change in the field of best practices for health and PE. So in about January, February of 2016, stakeholders asked us if we could revise the teacher preparation standards. We started the work about March, April, with 2 advisory committees, one for PE, one for health. They were made up of a variety of stakeholders from K-12 teachers, representatives, as well as teacher preparation programs, SHAPE Michigan, which is the Society of Health and PE Educators, and Michigan Fitness Foundation. They worked for a couple of months to revise the standards, which you see in your packet. After that, we queried the field and gathered some other data about the endorsements and the number of PE and health teachers out in the field, and then we're presenting to you today. The next step is to go out for official public comment and then bring back for an approval, and then to figure out our timelines of helping teacher preparation enact these changes. So the overview of the standards, there are a couple of things that you'll want to know or be aware of. As Sean said, both sets of standards are in one document because we're putting forward a proposal of one endorsement area. There are 5 domains of health and 5 domains of physical education. They have continuity, as you'll see in the next slide, with the previous set of standards in that we are continuing to have teachers be aware of the content knowledge for health and PE, instructional design, delivery to meet all learners' needs, assessment of student learning, and of course professionalism. The slight difference with this set of standards is that we are seeking an integrated model for both health and PE. There are natural overlaps between health and physical education, and so at those places in the standard, they're highlighted, the integration points. And again, the emphasis on physical fitness, physical activity, healthy lifestyles and living. So there is continuity with the 2000 standards version. One example of this is in the PE section. The new standards still expect teacher candidates to demonstrate knowledge about motor skill performance and personalized fitness. So that has continuity with the last set of standards. Sean mentioned the combination into a single endorsement field. There are a couple of things that we'd like to talk about with this one. Historically, we had one endorsement area that covered health, PE, dance, and recreation. This was quite a while ago. It was replaced by individualized endorsement areas. So an endorsement area for PE, one for health, one for dance, and one for recreation. That wasn't quite working for the field, as you can imagine. The shift was from the big one endorsement that encompassed all of them to the discrete endorsement areas was because there wasn't enough preparation, enough depth of knowledge, and so that's why they went to the discrete fields. We are seeking to go back, but only for the 2 fields, health and PE, so this way we can build in the integration and maintain the depth of content knowledge for the teachers. The other thing that we want to note here is there's slight mixed opinion in the field about this. We queried, as I said, we queried the field, we queried teachers, administrators, and teacher preparation. And Sean has the numbers. I'll let you talk.
Yeah, we had sent out a survey, and we used a data set of all of the teachers that currently have health and the PE endorsements, as well as school administrators. Had 286 total responses. Roughly 76.6% of the responses were in favor of a combined endorsement. Very, very strongly favored by local administrators and teachers. The EPI, the Educator Preparation Institution responses were more evenly spaced between yes and no. But then only about 23.4% of responses favored keeping them as separate endorsement fields.
So then the last shift for these set of standards is that we removed the aquatics. It wasn't quite a requirement, it was an elective in the previous set of standards. We removed that from this set of standards based on the advisory committee, and the reason was because K-12 was getting confused about who could actually teach aquatics and what credentials you need to supervise, say, swimming. And so what we did was removed it so that we could clarify, and also there's a law that's in place that requires that lifeguards be present in a pool on a 75-to-1 ratio, 75 students to 1 lifeguard, and we wanted to make that clear to the field that there needs to be a lifeguard on duty, and so therefore we removed it from the preparation. Now, candidates can still get preparation in swimming. They can go through a lifeguarding track or a water safety track if they choose, but it's now going to be clarified to K-12.
And they would get a separate credential.
And they would get a
in
separate
lifeguarding.
credential, exactly. And so the next step is public comment, as I mentioned, and then to bring it back to you all for a vote.
So as you know, attached to your board items, you do have the actual standards for you to review, and if you have any questions, you can certainly ask them of these two over this next month. But anything right now, Tom?
Thank you for your presentation. Quickly, health has traditionally been a little bit of a dicey topic over the last 100 years.
Or so.
Sex education. And so, I was looking at program requirements, and I know we're not going over those kind of standards, but, it is teaching, instruction on those areas. And so, there was a part here, characteristics of an effective health education curriculum, and I went to that link, and it was the CDC, and it talks about addressing individual values, attitudes, and beliefs. And I thought, this is how are teachers instructed to, well, first I thought there was a law that we weren't allowed to talk to kids about their individual values and beliefs. Is that something that's covered, or?
Well, I don't know about that specific law, but there is a law with specific requirements for an individual to teach sex education and HIV and AIDS education, which would encompass those things. These standards do not authorize somebody to do that without that specialized training.
So
and of course, parents have a right to opt out of sex ed.
And parents have a right to opt
Parents have
out.
a right,
Yes.
right.
And so that's separate from what we're being, this is?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, but,
and
yeah, we
we'll
have Mary.
Sorry.
Come on up, Mary.
I'm Mary Teach, the health and phys ed consultant
Okay.
here, so maybe I can help clarify some of the sex ed piece. A health education endorsement authorizes that teacher to instruct in sexuality education. So a lot of times with the teacher prep programs, you will see classes specifically to help them teach something that's developmentally appropriate, how they can handle those things. But when they get down to the K-12 level, when they're actually teaching, there are specific laws. Sex ed is not required in Michigan. Most schools do it. But if they do decide to teach sexuality education, there are a whole host of laws that they have to look at and follow. One of them is to have a sexuality education advisory board at the school level.
Right.
So all of that would have to go through that board before instruction
And
can happen.
just making sure that they're instructed how to, appreciate the parents' concerns
Yes,
and
absolutely.
opting out and.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Dr. Z, please. And then Pam.
Yeah, I appreciate this presentation. I just wanted you to unpack that professionalism, what topics or some examples of that in the standards.
Sure. In general terms, what we talk about with professionalism are things like understanding lifelong learning, sources for online learning, lifelong learning as a teacher. How does the teacher develop and continue to grow? Being an advocate for healthy lifestyles, healthy living, being an advocate for students and parents in those areas. So it's the elements of a teacher's work that are kind of outside of the instructional sphere.
Yep, Pam, please.
So my question is around the 23.4% of the educator survey that were not in agreement with the community. Do you have any information on what their thoughts were?
Well, largely this was our the biggest pocket of resistance there, or the no was from our educator preparation institutions. There were 37 responses, 20 of which were not in favor. those, the survey itself did not solicit any additional feedback beyond that, but what we have been told from some of those programs is some programs that have, for example, a health education, but they don't have a physical education curriculum and would have to retool in order to offer a combined thing, and may not have the capacity to offer a combined endorsement area. There are 18 schools with one program and 13 schools with the other. And so that was one of the arguments. The teachers, 48 of the teachers who responded were in favor and 35 were not. I can only speculate on that, and that might be a consideration or a fear that their old endorsement might not be honored anymore. And our policy has always been to honor and grandparent in those teachers, and we'd like to be able to create pathways for individuals with those individual endorsements to easily get a combined endorsement.
Michelle next. Thank you, Michelle. And then Cassandra.
I have a daughter who's studying to be a phys ed teacher right now. And so my questions are, so for the students that are in the, she's starting her third year, how would this would affect people, students within the pipeline? And I also had a question about if any of this looks at the MTTC requirements for phys ed teachers. My understanding is, they will have to pass, more comprehensive educational test to teach PE, and if there's any sort of consideration that on those lines. I don't know that you touched on that in your overview, the teaching requirements, and maybe that's something you can't have a say on. But for instance, you would have to do very well in ELA in order to teach PE. Is my understanding. Well, this is what my daughter is saying. So if you could touch on that, but also speak to students that are in the pipeline right now and how it would affect that.
Sure. Whenever a couple things. When we roll out new endorsements or new standards, we always provide a transition plan with deadlines for program review, program acceptance, and then a deadline beyond which we would we get everybody who's in the pipeline through, and they can be certified under the old standards. And it usually is about a 2-year window from the point of approval of standards. On the testing issue, I neglected to mention one thing in our urgency, and that's one of the impetuses that you've seen us come now multiple times in the last year with new teacher preparation standards, and it's like, what's the rush? Well, the state legislature allocated $3.6 million over 2 years to update teacher preparation standards in 2014 and 2015, to update the tests, I'm sorry. But before we can update the tests, we need to make sure that they're testing something that's current, and that what is being tested is meaningful to the field, which is why we have to go do the standards first, and then we can do the assessments. Now, the piece about ELA, if I read your comment correctly, probably relates to our basic skills assessments and the professional readiness exam, with the discrete components of reading, writing, and mathematics that all teachers have to pass in order to be one, to be recommended for teacher, but to be enrolled in a student teaching program. We recently issued a memo on the SAT, using the SAT for that purpose. It's a better aligned test to the K-12 curriculum, the new SAT, and provides much greater, richer, and free test preparation materials that are keyed to specific skills. But it is a belief statement here that there's a baseline, and it's in the law, of reading, writing, and math skills that all teachers should possess.
What's the score?
They're the Career and College Ready benchmarks, which is a 480 in reading and a 520 in math. Or evidence-based reading and writing.
Cassandra, and then Nikki, please.
First of all, I'm glad to hear that these are being combined again, because I think it did create some problems. And I'm going to give you an example of someone who contacted me about a year and a half ago. And you tell me if this is going to help this person, this teacher, or not. So this is someone who teaches in a rural school in Michigan, has 2 master's degrees, one in education, one in sports medicine. But the degree in sports medicine is from out of state, not in Michigan. And passed MDE's health, PE, and rec exam, but was told because their degrees from out of state, not approved by the state of Michigan, that they cannot teach health at the middle school level in Michigan. They can teach it in college, but not in a middle school. This is a rural school, which means when you take the health credential away from one teacher, it just doesn't get taught. So would this be something that would help this person then become credentialed again in the field in which they obviously have a lot of already good credentials?
Potentially.
Yeah, it depends.
Without knowing, all the specifics of the case, whether the program completed out of state was a teacher prep program in sports medicine, or did it have all those elements? There's a number of factors that our evaluators look at when they do that.
Wouldn't the test kind of overrule that? I mean, if they have a degree and they can pass the test, shouldn't that be enough?
Well, we have a permit system that would allow somebody like that to teach, and particularly if it's less than half time, if they're teaching several things. Right. We have an expert permit and a shortage permit for teachers who are certified, that are lacking maybe that one area, that they can be authorized to teach those things if they've demonstrated the superior level of knowledge in a particular area.
Okay.
So that, the permit system that exists now could help that teacher, actually.
Okay, so when we're done here today, maybe I can get your contact information.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Our emails are here in the PowerPoint. And,
okay, good.
Thank you. Nikki, please.
I know you said in that 20% plus that were opposed to it, you were just assuming, and the survey didn't include specific comments. Right. Can we get their comments on why they're opposed so that we understand, just have more information, if you will?
Yes, when we put this out for public comment, which we'll do immediately, there will be that open response area, so we can better tease out those nuances.
All right, thank you very much. The next presentation
Thank you.
Is on intermediate school district's role, function, and structure. Welcome to William Miller, Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators, and Lisa Hagel, the 2016-17 MAISA President and Superintendent of Genesee Intermediate School District. Bill and Lisa are here to present on the role, function, and structure of intermediate school districts. We welcome both of you to the table.
Good to see you all. Well, I'll just start out by saying thank you very much for inviting us, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk about an issue that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and we're really proud of our ISDs in Michigan, and I'm sure that'll show through on the presentation that we do for you today. I'm Bill Miller. I'm Executive Director of the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators, and we're a membership organization that represents leadership in ISDs across the state. And we coordinate the work of ISDs across the state because ISDs are exceptionally collaborative, working with each other. And we've accomplished many fantastic things through that. This is Dr. Lisa Hagel. She's the superintendent of the Genesee Intermediate School District and also the president of our board, our MAISA is what our organization is called, our board president. And you're receiving 2 handouts. One is a timeline that will illustrate over the past, since we were formed in 1962, the additional responsibilities and roles that ISDs have assumed. And we put them in a context that will jog your memory about some other things that are happening during those years. And not only has education changed, a lot of things have changed, and so have ISDs along with the times. And the second one is just another piece to give you a view of what are some real examples of how ISDs add value to the system, and some concrete examples of what some ISDs are doing, just to give you a better illustration. So we don't have to spend as much time on this presentation. We'll leave those materials with you, and hopefully they'll complement what we have to say today. You're up.
Right, so just to add a little bit to my introduction, as Dr. Miller said, I serve as the superintendent in Genesee Intermediate School District, which is an organization of about 1,800 staff members. We serve 21 districts, organizing all efforts from birth to age 26 for children who are severely impaired, down to our little ones who are visiting right in the homes. And what I really hope you gather from today is the value that ISDs are adding to the K-12 system. So today, as we sit here at this board meeting, there are children across the state being serviced by an ISD in a number of ways. Early childhood, as I mentioned. So you give us funds to organize GSRP, Great Start Readiness, for 4-year-olds. We welcome those 4-year-olds into a lot of ISD-operated programs or local district programs, but the ISDs are the organizations that really monitor compliance, consistency in curriculum, materials, teacher qualifications. The students that are most in need of the programs are in the programs. We also, a lot of ISDs also combine that with Head Start, which are federal dollars, but when we're able to combine the Head Start program with GSRP, it will provide a full day of an education program for a child. ISDs also, as we sit here, are helping children experience things that are in career pathways. As you said this morning, some children already know what they're very much interested in. Others need to explore. So in our career and technical programs that are occurring across the state, there are children experiencing career pathways, such as the picture depicts their culinary. It could be veterinary medicine, it could be informational technology, it could be large equipment operating, it could be nursing. There are a multitude of programs happening across the state that really expose students to the employability they need and the career that they're really interested in. And those primarily occur through the support of an ISD. Additionally, student growth is always on our mind, not only in a test, but really by demonstration. How do we know children are learning, and how are we able to observe that, prove that, understand that, and celebrate that? ISDs work with instructors on those 3 ways as well. As you know, ISDs specialize in special education. So today, in either a small rural city or a large urban town, we, as an ISD organizations, are servicing the children who are either severely intellectually impaired, multiply impaired, physically impaired, or could be on the autism spectrum disorder and just not successful in a K-12 program. So they come to a center-based program at an ISD where there are specialized instructors, specialized facilities and equipment. We're able to combine OT, PT, nursing, and teaching all in one setting. Additionally, there are a number, you may not even be aware of how many young people are attending college in an early middle college setting at the same time they're attending high school. Typically, these are a 5-year high school experience where students come together in a countywide program that is oftentimes operated by an ISD to attend either a community college, a university, and now through your generosity and the opportunities, career and technical middle colleges. So they're able to earn college credits for CTE courses as well. And then finally, today somewhere, I guarantee you, there are teachers and staff using technology that is purchased through an ISD. By leveraging the capacity and doing bulk purchasing work, we have been able to lower the cost of equipment. We've been able to expand the capacity of our staff. We've been able to, as you know, increase the number of devices and technology equipment that's available to staff and students. And then finally, today somewhere in Michigan, there would be an ISD cooperating with a business or an agency so that students are learning the importance of giving back to the community, as well as learning how important the practical skills are in an employable setting, as the academic skills are that they're reading from a book. And it's a pleasure to be able to combine those opportunities all across Michigan through the ISD's capacity for our local districts.
So in Michigan, we've had ISDs for 55 years. ISDs are also known as Regional Education Service Agencies, RESDs, which are Regional Education Service Districts. And no matter what they're called, all the things that you saw are the common services that each of those provides. So what's in a name? Well, as the role and function of ISDs has expanded, and I'll go into that short history for you, many communities have tried to change their concept with their communities to say, really, we're regional service agencies. We're not just an intermediary between the Michigan Department of Education and Board and the local school districts, which is why we were formed in the first place. And that happened in 1962. And the reason for that is the legislature formed ISDs for several purposes. First, as a link between local school districts and the Michigan Department of Education at a time when schools were rapidly consolidating. This was during a lot of rural schools, one-room schools, county schools were being consolidated, and the ISDs were created to help the Department of Education with that process. Also, to provide services and that were either too expensive or too highly specialized for individual districts to create on their own. So we've known as Lisa has said, for special education, career technical education, professional development. Those are examples of, even for 55 years, we've been doing many of those services in collaboration with the Department of Education. So I'm turning it over to Lisa for a description of what are some of those new ways that ISDs have evolved.
So as Dr. Miller said, over 50 years ago, ISDs were established for certain purposes. Just as the world has changed and the needs of the communities and the schools have changed, so have the services of an ISD. As we've all experienced revenue shrinking and needs growing due to, I heard this morning, due to poverty, due to lots of different reasons, ISDs have had to fill gaps for local districts. One of those gaps is online testing. Online testing has just come about the last few years to ensure that the fiber optic systems had the capacity and the networks were ready for the amount of information that was crossing. The ISD tech directors worked long and hard to collaborate to make those testing experiences successful, and they went off really without a hitch. I know Vanessa Kessler really worked hard with them to make sure everyone was ready, and that was much easier to manage through a system of 50 people as points of contact than 500 people as a point of contact for online testing. Additionally, literacy coaches. Literacy is near and dear to all of our heart. It is the important component that every child needs to be successful at an early age. With the extra funding through MDE, you have given us portions of literacy coaches that, when used at a regional capacity through an ISD, they're able to service far more instructors than if every single school district was asked to employ a literacy coach. So coaches can work together to strengthen the skills of teachers, new teachers, seasoned teachers, so that we are better able to meet the needs of the 4, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds before they get to the real critical age of being able to constantly extract information from that text. And then finally, I mentioned before, device purchasing. Through the efforts of TRIG, you heard a little bit more about TRIG this morning, device purchasing has really become a realistic objective of all districts because costs of those devices have come down due to leveraging the capacity. the systems at ISDs, whether they're across one county or two counties, but the systems themselves have really lent themselves to other things. Most recently, unfortunately, we have experienced the water crisis in Flint, where Genesee ISD is. Because of school of choice, the children have been dispersed in a way that we didn't imagine 50 years ago throughout a county. So, for example, there are about 19,900 children from birth through 12th grade affected by the Flint water. They all live in the zip codes. However, because of school of choice, there are about 4,500 of those children only attending the Flint schools. The other 15,000 of those children are dispersed through the other 20 districts in Genesee County, as well as our preschool programs. So to replicate those services 21 times over would be inefficient, would be very costly, I would say it would be very ineffective, and the consistency would wane. By using the systems of an ISD, we've been able to work directly with MDE to provide early on services for children 0 to 5, assess children no matter where they're attending school, provide nutrition for all the children, kindergarten through 12th grade if they've been affected by the lead. We've been able to support through social work and nursing and work together to meet the family's needs no matter where they're attending school. And consequently, that has saved MDE and the state of Michigan a significant amount of time and money.
So you know the demographics of our state. We have lots of school districts. We have a lot of public school academies. We have 56 intermediate school districts. And the benefit of working with MDE and the 56 is that you're not working, as Lisa said, with 850 different units of government. Makes things very much more efficient and inconsistent in terms of quality. Our real strength, however, is that these 56 organizations work together to solve problems. They don't work independently. When we have an issue like early literacy, we're all working together to provide training across the state. We reach 100% of the students across the state in terms of our professional development, our technology infrastructure, and we're able to do that by combining in different ways so that even the smallest ISD is able to provide core services. So we share and we collaborate. And that's not that common in schools today because, again, through schools of choice and other elements, a lot of schools compete. Where ISDs, we're in a position where we probably used to be a bit competitive, but that's all fallen by the wayside now. And we're very much a collaborative, statewide organization that actually gets a tremendous amount of work done on behalf of the children of the state. And we do that by providing 6 core services, which Lisa mentioned a number of those. I'll just say one that we haven't brought up is shared operational services. So ISDs create a lot of efficiencies by doing business services for local school districts and community groups and nonprofits, by the way. HR services, technology services. We sell services. We're entrepreneurial. If we have groups that want to purchase our services, we're able to do that as well. And so it really reduces the costs and increases the quality of personnel when we do shared operational services. And we want to continue to do more consolidation of services. We think that's extremely important. So how do we fund all of this stuff? Well, we have a really interesting funding model that includes both local property taxes. 40 states have some kind of regional service agency in the United States. The only ones that don't are ones that are county school districts because they don't operate in community schools. They operate on a county basis. Those are mostly in the South. All the rest have some kind of funding system. We're the only ones that have property tax funding. So we levy taxes, millage, that's voted by the local taxpayers within the ISD for special education, that's everywhere. For career and technical education, that's half the places that are ISDs, so we've got about half of them that levy that millage. And some levy something called enhancement millage, which goes directly to benefit the local school district. It's transferred directly to the district on a per pupil basis. So we have those three forms of funding in addition to state funding. From the legislature for core services, we have state funding. We also work with MDE on delivering on grants and different projects that the Michigan Department of Education wants us to undertake. I don't think we've ever said no to anything that MDE's approached us to do, and we always try to do our absolute best to be collaborative and work with MDE, and I think we have a great relationship. We also are federally funded, particularly IDEA money, and our relationship with the students that have disabilities in this state, I think, is second to none in terms of our abilities to ensure that the quality services are provided across the state through federal and state funding. And finally, as I mentioned, ISDs are entrepreneurial as well, so we do have an expanded capacity to sell services. Our point today was that we add a lot of value to the system. I don't need to read this to you, but we get a lot of testimonials actually from people who take advantage of our services and say, you know, thank you, we could have never have done this without the collaboration and the skilled people that you have, because I think we have the most talented people in the state in education are working for ISDs. I don't know how much you want to cover these.
So a few of the more specialized services, I'd like to give you examples rather than go over all these broader topics. You hear a lot about online classes and digital learning, and whether students choose to attend school or not physically attend school now is really a choice of the family. Years ago, Superintendent Flanagan challenged an ISD to organize seat time waivers and coordinate for the state of Michigan the online courses and the follow-up and the assessments. Last year, 22,000 online courses were taken through the ISDs. This year, right now, we're at about 16,000 online courses for ISDs. Additionally, some of the special education programs that are at the ISDs focus on the 19 to 26-year-old students and how to make them independently successful when they complete our programs through transition skills, community-based learning, job opportunities, while there's a mentor on the other end, so that they don't fall through the cracks and we really get them prepared for when they leave our programs. When they're in high school, they do have the right to stay until they're 26, but there's not always extra staff to ensure that that occurs. Again, the math science programs, preparing students and teachers to prepare students for the STEM opportunities that are in the field today. That's a big focus of ISDs and really, really important under the work if Michigan is going to be a top 10 in 10. Additionally, some of the programs that we have in Michigan that ISDs support, again, revolve around technology. So the ISDs are working together to construct the SEN, the State Education Network. Most ISDs have purchased and built over time local education network fiber systems that support their district, which have allowed county by county to bid out for internet services, which have lowered the cost for the local districts. Again, things that aren't quite as pretty or decorative or exciting, but content filters, safety filters, those can cost excessive amounts of money that really should be in the classroom and not spent just on system by system. So by leveraging that across the state, ISDs have been able to bring down the price of very important things like safety filters for the internet. But that's really done by leveraging our capacity as ISDs in general. Dr. Miller shared a few minutes ago, shared services at ISDs are very important. Many districts share out business personnel, so they have experts in accounting or experts in payroll, experts in accounts payable. They save districts thousands and thousands of dollars that can go to the classroom by sharing staff and leveraging expertise. Transportation is another area. Many ISDs have consortiums that follow an ISD transportation model that will save millions of dollars over years. I know one ISD's been doing this for about 10 years. They save $1.7 million a year. So over 10 years, that's $17 million in bus purchasing, safety training for drivers, paraeducators that are not duplicative. In the, I'll say olden days, I'm going to use an example. If you have 15 districts, you would have 15 districts transporting their students independently to a center-based program. Now with consortiums and shared navigation systems and shared routing software, that can be done very efficiently and effectively through a regionalized model. And the same with communication. We all know we're never accused of communicating too much. Everyone wants more communication. We want more Martin Ackleys, but there's not enough dollars to go around for more
Thank
Martin
God there's not
Ackleys.
more of him.
So we typically will share the talents of a communication person for positive reasons, for responding to media requests, for responding to FOIAs, so that districts aren't using instructional leaders' time for some of these auxiliary types of services to support the local districts. Supporting teachers is an obvious task of an ISD. It's one of the most critical things that we do. Thousands of professional development opportunities are offered each year through the ISD for general ed or special ed or CTE, early childhood instructors. We are also working with higher eds so that our instructors are preparing students appropriately for what they'll see in higher ed, and higher ed faculty understand what's occurring in a high school classroom. But beyond instructors, the staff is very important. We forget that bus drivers need specialized training. That occurs at the ISD. We forget about EpiPens, CPR, AED, concussion. All of those other add-on trainings, those typically occur from ISD staff working with local districts. Your people who are on the front line, the secretaries, your tech directors, your technicians, they all need updated training as everything changes. That occurs at an ISD level to save time and dollars for local districts. Paraeducators who are in a special education classroom, they're trained at an ISD. So not only are teachers benefiting from the capacity, so are the support staff that are critically important in our counties. Partnerships really add capacity and value to what we do. You are a partner for us. You as the board are a partner for my board. You are a partner for ISD boards. I think partnership help us all achieve greater things than what we could do independently. And at an ISD, you'll see and feel service-oriented leadership, where we want to be successful through collaborations, whether that's with an employer, whether that's with a college and university, whether that's with a health and human services organization, or a nonprofit, or a civic group. Or really today, we're collaborating with business and industry, because we know our tech centers must prepare these students for those jobs that just remain vacant. So by sitting on advisory boards at an ISD level and welcoming in other folks on our advisory boards, we're really building key partnerships across the state to make us all more successful. And finally, nothing ever stops improving. Schools need to improve, organizations need to improve, whether it's through a mandated process, whether it's through a voluntary accreditation process. ISDs assist right down to the school building, the schools to work their way through the accreditation processes or the mandated school improvement processes. We also help districts with reporting requirements. There are more reports today for an administrator than there are days of school. So if you're a new administrator coming in from a classroom or from outside of education, you receive a request for over 180 reports. That's a little overwhelming. So the capacity at an ISD helps collect data, helps provide training for new administrators to get individuals like you the information that you need to know that your programs are working. We also at ISDs or RESAs or RESDs help either a consortium of our districts or an individual district, or at the ISD level, secure grants. Grants really help us do more than what we could typically, whether an MDE grant, a federal grant, a foundation grant. Typically, ISDs have people who are skilled in writing or have the demographic information to not have someone go back through the exercise of compiling a lot of information. So if we share, we're far more successful in receiving grants. And then finally, with all the changes from No Child Left Behind and the EAA and the SRO and Top 10 in 10, and now we're on to the ESSA, we have lists. You know, we have lists of all kinds of schools. We have schools who are struggling. We have schools who are really struggling. Every time we see one of our schools, because ISDs consider their local districts and their buildings, that's one of our schools, we work very diligently to help those districts get those schools off one of those lists and help administrators be stronger, skilled instructional leaders, help teachers be more effective in the classroom, and help those children meet the standards they need to achieve to be able to pass those assessments that are coming at every step of the way. And so we take it very personal in our work to remove those students off the list and achieve as we all want them to.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up. You've got a lot of information about what we do, and there's just, that's not all of what we do. There's some individual tailored services too that ISDs provide to their districts, which is also exciting. But our message to you is that we're everywhere, we're efficient, effective, we try really hard at equity. We're not equal, but we try to take what we can and share among the ISDs and have an equitable set of resources for the local districts. And we feel our services are essential for moving Michigan forward. We work in all sorts of configurations. I just sort of want to leave you with this idea. We don't stick to our boundaries. We have different configurations for teacher evaluation training. Those are through our MAISA regions. We have prosperity regions. We run adult ed through prosperity regions. And we have consortia, all sorts of different consortia. So, for instance, in the consortia for technology, 500,000 devices were purchased through Copper Country ISD for the whole state. This is an example of something you wouldn't necessarily think could happen. But that's how closely we work together. And I just wanted to leave you with saying that I really appreciate the opportunity to come today. We've got a great relationship with Superintendent Whiston. We really think we pretty much solve every problem that's put on the table with the association and MDE. It's an unprecedented relationship with our official partnership agreement, and we very much enjoy working with the staff here, and I think together we make things a lot better for the kids in the state. So thank you for your time.
I'm going to call on Tom in 1 second. I just wanted to say, as a local soup, I was part of Wayne Reese, and certainly they provided a lot of great services, including preparing teachers to be principals, PD services in general, special ed services, and letting us know when we were doing well and not afraid to tell us when we needed to improve. Emergency services, you know, I lost my business manager, was murdered, and they were on site within hours to run our business offices for literally 6 or 9 months while we went through a process of replacing. Transportation routing, saving us money. We'd go out for bid and get one price. We'd go out for bid through Wayne Reese that would go with other districts, and we'd get a better price. We certainly were saving money through that. Certainly our low-achieving schools and the support they provided us there. Quite frankly, I wanted to be a creative superintendent, to do different things, and the ISD was there to support me in designing, thinking, and getting going. So I know as a local soup, I deeply appreciated working with Wayne Reese. Tom, and then Eileen and Lupe. We'll probably call on all of you.
Thanks for your presentation. I know that we don't have enough time to really elaborate much on my questions, but just mainly, do each of the 56 ISDs have metrics, have goals, so that they know what success looks
Yes.
like or not? And if they do, can you send me those metrics and where they were 2 years ago and where they were last year for each of them?
We have we have an accreditation process. So we go through an accreditation process where they set goals through NCA, which is now Advanced Ed. So each one has a set of goals that they meet, and I don't have the metrics from each of them, but we could, request that they send the metrics to me, and we could get those out to you about how they're progressing on those goals.
So they have specific, because if everything's important, nothing's important. So they are
Yeah.
saying that these are the 8 things we're going to
Right,
focus
right.
on. Literacy, it's
Right.
at 28%, and we want it at 40%, or
Right.
that's the kind of stuff that they have that you'll be able to
Yes.
provide me. And then how they measure it, and whether if they're going in the right direction or the wrong direction.
Well, you're right close to it where you are. So each ISD has a outside independent evaluators that come in. They review all of their materials. They determine where the weaknesses are in that particular ISD services compared to their mission, and then they set those goals. And I don't know specifically how many of them are directly linked to student achievement in the local districts. I know they're linked to student achievement within the programs they operate. Do you
So we'll see
I'm
what we
saying?
can get for you.
Okay.
So I'll see what I can get, because a lot of them are measuring the programs that they're actually directly responsible for. But we try to measure local district achievement as well, and what the services we provide in professional development do to increase performance of students in all of our districts.
I'd appreciate
Lupe and then Eileen.
Well, it's very good to see you.
Good to see you again.
And meet you. And I have to say that we have 3 ISDs that come regularly to our meetings. We're in Risa, Calhoun, and Macomb, and they're my buddies. When they don't come, I miss them. And I am from the KISD, Kent County Intermediate School District, and I have to say that I testify to what you're saying, that ISDs do, because ours is rock and rolling in our area. They provide many, many, many services. I like the passion that both of you expressed. You know what's happening at the ISDs, and you just rattle it freely because it is truly happening. It's all about how and what are we doing for the success of our students, in my book, and the ISDs truly do that. And so thank you so much for your presentation. It opened more of the things that you do, but I am a visitor of the RISD regularly, and so I know, they invite me, so I go. So thank you so much.
Eileen and Nikki, please.
Dr. Hagel, I haven't had the pleasure of working with you, but I've been watching you during very difficult times. And Dr. Miller, I've worked with for more years than either of us would care to talk about. But,
Been around a lot.
so I commend you for helping ISDs face growing district challenges, because we're often in a time of static or even reduced funding. And I just heard something with Tom's question that I wanted to just probe a little bit, which is that with outside evaluation, I hear you saying that they're looking at how well districts, ISDs, are doing the services that they have decided to provide with their membership districts. The question that I raise is a couple of things. One is technology and CTE training, plus middle colleges. There's only 56 ISDs, right? Yes.
Yep.
And there are 83 counties. And when you look at that map that you had up earlier, the more rural, the larger the ISD. And
Right.
we also know that you don't have a lot of only half of the districts in the state have CTE
Right.
funding, and I don't know how many counties have community college funding. But as we move into, and as people have said, we're preparing children for life, not necessarily for careers, but you can't avoid that a child who has an opportunity in Oakland County can be very different than a child of Menominee. And so I have 2 questions. One is, as ISDs face the challenges moving forward, how can you make sure MESA has the ability to prompt conversations in all of those areas that might come up with a different solution for how that ISD is serving its children? And what role do the local districts get to play in the ISD outside evaluation, so that if there's a difference between A bureaucracy which has employees who have strengths and perceived strengths and weaknesses in the districts. How you get to a spot where the ISD really is more nimble, which is hard, and entrepreneurial, which you state that that's a goal.
Well, that's a big question.
It's a big question, sorry.
That's okay. It's, any time that we have accreditation system, it includes local district employees at all levels, not just administrators, but all staff. And the impartial third-party people go out and seek feedback from them on the services of the ISD and critique it. So we do have that data. On the smaller ISDs, they do a lot of partnering up with the surrounding ISDs. So we're trying to, let's say, not erase, but have movable boundaries where things can happen and different partnerships, and combine some of them. So I know in Calhoun, some of the smaller ISDs in that area get most of their services from Calhoun, either from purchasing or Calhoun opens the doors for those districts to come in. I think where there's very low millage rates and very big geography, we're trying to find ways to cooperate with surrounding ISDs, but sometimes we have to use the technology because the distance is too far. And then we have gaps in community college service, clearly, and there's places that have both problems, big geography, no community college service. So, we're trying to find ways even to create our own community colleges, which we find quite challenging for the ISD. It's a multi-year process to try to create an entity like that. So we're trying to do it using the technology. We've got everybody, virtually we'll have everyone connected to a statewide fiber network, and we think we can do a lot more CTE type work with that. I think we could be quite successful there. So that's one of our main strategies, is to get this fiber in the ground and get the content of such quality that the business people can have input into what's needed, and also into the actual training programs themselves.
I can add a little to that might help. So we are one of the counties in Genesee that's blessed to have a countywide millage to support CTE. Not every seat is full every session in that center, so we do encourage students from Shiawassee County or drivable Lapeer County to attend our center because they don't have that opportunity. So we work with those local districts to encourage those students to come, take advantage of those programs. As far as how do local districts evaluate ISDs, you'll probably hear 40 different ways that occurs. One thing that I can share is our local superintendents have an opportunity to evaluate myself and our ISD and how well we meet their needs every single year, every February. It's a routine. Also, we move our board meetings to the local districts so that our board is constantly engaged in local boards. So if there is something that they need or a complaint or a concern, we all hear it immediately. And then in addition, 2 of my board members attend every single district meeting every year without me, so that as an organization, if there's a challenge that we're not meeting or a need, or we need to be nimble and move somewhere else, they will hear that and share, both celebrate what we are doing right and share what we can do next with myself and our leadership team. As far as Mr. McMillan's question on goals, each of us do have goals. We must have goals for the accreditation process that we go through. It's a 5-year process. So you have internal and external people coming in looking at your goals, your metrics, or sometimes it's just evidences that you're providing them, because it might be a cultural goal. And so in order to receive that accreditation, you have to meet metrics that you're setting. But one of the challenges is an ISD is an organization within itself, and you're a support for your districts that you serve. So you're always trying to raise test scores and achievement in the areas for the local districts while improving your own organization. And sometimes they're very different needs. So you may have almost 2 sets of goals. One set of goals you're establishing with your superintendents on where you're directing your resources. The other goal is internal and how to improve your organization.
All right, Nikki and then Michelle, please.
So I just wanted to say thank you personally. I was one of the students that took advantage of the consortium and got my CNA before I even graduated high school. So it definitely, it was a wonderful opportunity, I think. So I'm thankful for that opportunity. One of the things Eileen mentioned was that 50% that is sort of like the ISDs that don't have the opportunity of certain CTE programs. Representative Bolafave, I think, put something out there in terms of how school districts can work with students and offer CTE opportunity with the private sector, if you will. It doesn't always have to be subsidized by the government. I don't know if you guys can forge a pathway for those ISDs that don't have CTE programs, but they can opt out of certain seat times, I think is what his bill says, and then they can make partnerships with businesses in the community and actually go out and make those connections. So maybe it's not a center-based CTE thing that they can do, but take advantage of that. I don't know if it's been passed. Marty, do you know if it was passed? Bolafave's bill? Bolafave's bill on, okay. Would be an interesting thing to look into. I think he had a great idea.
Thank you. Michelle, you passing or you got something?
Just something.
All right.
One thing, I just want to follow up on Nikki said, you know, there's all sorts of partnership programs with trades, and they seem to be everywhere, and they're really great programs to combine with. So my question was with regard to special education and oversight of special education and the role of the ISPs on that. So there's been some conversations about that lately. But I wanted to just preface it by saying, you know, I did go with the Lieutenant Governor to most of the stops across the state, and there was a wide variety of interpretations of things like free and appropriate education. It's not a consistent definition. And the, you know, I know people have resources, but the federal government is, you know, expecting us to comply with the law. So what would be your role in ensuring that there's consistency in services and supports for special education services since we work in this consortium? What do you see as your role?
Well, we provide all sorts of support and coordination working with the Department of Education, and the conversation that's been going on. We've had a 6-month conversation, which I think we ended with some fruitful conclusions about how we could better serve students across the state. And our role is really to find the best examples of how that's being done and help the other ISDs implement those effective practices. That's really what we do through our association. So if it's more inclusive practices, that's what you'll hear some places that they want. We have ISDs that are doing that. So what can you learn from your partner ISDs in a consortium? So we create, you know, different experiences and share our successes, and that's really what we do as an association, is try to encourage, you know, implementing innovative and better practices.
So my understanding is that there's an understanding that that is to have someone be in the most inclusive environment that they can be in, not to put them into a center-based program.
Absolutely.
So, and to try. I mean, my son's in a center-based program, so I'm not disparaging center-based. Everybody has, there needs to be a spectrum of services, and I believe that. But there are some districts that believe that are much quicker to put them in a center-based, and they all feel like this is the definition. So there's different definitions of the law, or how in different areas. And it was a big issue for parents that felt their kids weren't getting what they should. In some areas they were doing it differently than others. So what I'm hearing is, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're working with the department, and I'm not just talking about the complaint procedure. I'm talking,
No. We worked on FAPE, and I'm going to give you an update on that.
This is all about providing FAPE and how to do that in a way that's consistent across the state.
And in compliance with federal law.
That's what we've been working on.
Working at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll have an update on that. So I will. Yep, I'll get to you in a second. Dr. Zian and Cassandra.
Yeah. Now, in 1962, we started this system how many new ISDs, how many consolidations, how many closures have there been since then? I just want to get...
Of ISDs?
Yes.
There's been one, I guess I'll say it wouldn't be closure, but it would be combining of two ISDs into...
Consolidation.
It wasn't really a consolidation, it was more like an annexation. So it was agreed to by the board. They didn't have a consolidation vote. It was just done in the agreement of the board. So the same ISD has been sort of annexed to itself 3 times. So there was one with Mason Lake, and now Mason Lake Oceana. Now that's called West Shore. So that particular ISD is combined in 3 different ways. Otherwise, since '62, the ISDs have been the same consistent boundaries that they have now.
I would have appreciated in your presentation, kind of like just a spreadsheet which laid out the sizes, the relative sizes in terms of employees and budgets for the ISDs. I got a feeling that Wayne Riza, which I've worked with, is a different animal than the ISDs up north.
Clearly.
And which raises the question of, you know, how much do your generalizations apply to all ISDs, or just some and not others? And part of what I'm leading up to is, how do we know the system, whether the system is right sized? Maybe some ISDs need to be consolidated to get an economy of scale. Maybe the rural ones provide services the urban ones don't provide, and maybe that's attention we need to, at least ought to be brought to our attention.
I can provide you that information.
Okay, thank you.
Cassandra, and then nothing? Okay, Pam, anything? And then Tracy.
Thank you for your presentation, and I have definitely grown appreciative of what the ISDs do. I've had the opportunity of working closely with the ISDs in Saginaw through some of the early childhood development programs, as well as getting to know some of the other ISDs being in Flint as well. I guess my question is around Michigan Department of Education, and how can we help to improve some of the relationships with ISDs? I know in some districts it's just this known thing, and I know that it's improving, but I think you kind of hit on that, is that there's like this still like this edge, and I don't necessarily want to say competition, but I think that there's still some room for improvement, and especially as we're going into this partnership model, how do we help to improve those dynamics? And I think Eileen and maybe Tom kind of got at some of that too. You know, how do we have this back and forth evaluation of how those relationships are improving? And I think that definitely the framework would be, what are the goals that you have together? And I think one of the things that I've talked with Brian about, we've talked about, is, you know, how do we have this continuous quality improvement, that especially, again, as we're going into the partnership model with the various, you know, we're expanding that among districts. And especially since there's such a diversity in the districts that you work with. There's and different districts are needing such different supports. So, and then going to that, I know in Saginaw, I was called in some time ago to help them improve the makeup and the diversity of their staffing. And you know, how can you all think through that and ensuring that there is diversity in staffing, and we can meet diversity in so many different ways? One of the things that I definitely appreciate about the ISDs is their parent involvement, but I think that we really have to protect that. I know some parents that I spoke to in some districts were looking at almost like the bringing on or having greater support of the business community. They almost felt like they were getting edged out, but really making sure that we have parents at the forefront of all that we do, especially like in the early childhood development programs, where a lot of times we're trying to make sure that we're reaching the parents, and the parents are aware of programs, so we know that we need the parents to help us to do that, as well as key community not necessarily just thought leaders, but just those people who can help us to better design the programs as well as better ensure access to the programs. So, I mean, it seems like there was one other thing that I had, but I don't remember what that was.
Well, if you do, get
Thanks
back
for
to
your
me.
guidance, I appreciate it.
Tracy, please.
I too just wanted to say thank you, because I wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for our Kent ISD and the coaching support that I have had ongoing for years, and the capacity building that's taken place within our district to be able to continue that on our own through job-embedded professional learning and an identity of shared leadership. And I have noted that, you know, there are times where we haven't been as connected to our ISD, and then when we are, how much better things are. And I know there are a number of districts who don't take advantage. And so those are just some of my wonderings about how do we ensure that everyone is taking advantage, because I can't imagine serving in an educational role without the support you all provide. So thank you again, but that's just kind of my question is, not that you have an answer.
No, it's a constant struggle of leadership. I mean, it's all about the leadership.
Yeah.
And if you know how to utilize your ISD, and if you take full advantage, or you don't, or you think you can do everything on your own, and some of it's the culture, and some of it's the trust, and some of it's, can you relate to my community, and can you relate to the board? I mean, those are all really important pieces, and we need to get better as ISDs. There's always plenty of room for improvement for us to be better connected with our local schools and communities, so that's an ongoing task for us.
Sure. Well, and just the limitations of it, like the coaching piece of it, you know, it's what's really influenced me, and I just know how few of them there are too. So that's part of it as well. Like I know with the third grade reading law now that they're they're really looking at providing more literacy coaches, but I know there aren't enough of them. There might be one, you know, for an ISD that's servicing many, but thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Now it takes a minute. But, so just adding to the parent involvement piece, and we talked about this when we had the presentation by Head Start, is, again, that opportunity to not only get parents involved, but in looking at the diversity of staffing, is that is a cornerstone piece within the Head Start program. It is really encouraging ISDs to really look at that, and again, ensuring that we bring parents up through that system. And one of the things that I was able to share is that my grandmother in Mississippi was one of the first folks to work with the Head Start program, and she was able to get her college degree and work her way up through that system. So it's a very important for so many different reasons that be a focus that we don't lose.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here today.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Next item on the committee of the whole agenda is presentation on Michigan's Every Student CEDAC plan. Presentation provides a summary of the public comment process received to date in Michigan's draft consolidated state plan for every student's CEDAC, as well as updates on discussions related to the draft plan. Period of comment goes through March 16th. As I'm sitting here today, I'm getting some emails of input from some organizations, so that won't be part of your PowerPoint today, but we will update you and share you their thoughts. I also met with MASA this morning, and we'll be meeting with the secondary school principals this evening, and we'll share their comments with you as well. With that, Vanessa, please.
Good morning, everyone. As the superintendent said, we wanted to summarize the comment we've heard through the ESSA feedback up until about Monday. We had to cut it off at some point to make the presentation, so let me just jump right in. We opened the comment on the 14th. The documents are here, and we provided all of the opportunity to comment. Just reminding everyone that this was actually the 4th round of feedback, and that is not taking into account all of the ongoing discussions. So there were 4 official rounds of feedback. This is the public comment coming at the end. But official public comment is by no means the only way we get input. Even during this process, it's not the only way we get input. So just take that into account when you're thinking about what we heard through this component of the feedback process versus the overall ongoing conversation. As of March 10th, we'd received more than 275, and then again, we've been meeting with legislators for one-on-one discussions. We've been providing testimony at legislative meetings. We've been meeting with numerous stakeholder groups as a group. The superintendent's been meeting, I've been meeting, the team's been meeting. So again, we get lots of in-person feedback. We did follow-up meetings with a number of groups who came in earlier in the process in the last 30 days. So again, just more, same point that this is the formal public comment that we're talking about right here is reflective of a piece of the overall comment that we've received. These are just some of the topics and just a quick count of where people have been commenting, and you can see the bulk of the comments fall into the accountability system and plan submission timing, and then this other aspects, which I'll get into in a minute. Just a quick overview of the major themes, like I just said, timing, accountability system is A to F or is other, and then within A to F, because that was what went out for comment, people made a good deal of comments around what are the appropriate indicators and weights. And then a lot of support for the whole child approach. Again, the top two bullets take a lot of the discussion time, it seems like, but underneath it is this general excitement about whole child, particularly around the inclusion of fine arts, music, physical education, and libraries, and just more things, this incorporation of wraparound services into the supports, into the planning process at the local level, so there's a good deal of support for that. In terms of the accountability system, we know we have to consider that the purpose is to help identify schools where there's needs, to hold us all accountable, and to incentivize things that are important in the 10 and 10. We have three options presented here. The A to F is the one that we committed to producing as part of the ESSA process in response to that public act, the Detroit legislation, and then interest from the legislature and the governor's office at that point in time. We've also shown A to F without a final summative and a transparency dashboard, where you don't make value judgments, it's just it's information. Oops, went the wrong way. These are just quick mock-ups you've seen. This is the one, the A to F one that we showed. We've discussed at some length here at the board table. This is that without a roll-up. Again, these are early prototypes. We need to take out the pencil in the middle, but it would be, these is component grades, but no sum up grade. And then something like this for a transparency dashboard where there'd be values presented against the state average, but no plus or minus or grade or just kind of the information presented. Down below in those factors, we'd have to go through each of those and set how, what is the number that's presented and how do we explain it or contextualize it. But those are the types of things that we would want to see on that dashboard. Again, now I'm kind of transitioning into the comment that we received, which was primarily either about do you use A to F or not, and then for those who commented on the A to F system, we have some information. So actually in the comment, there's somewhat balanced comment of support, non-support for an A to F or not. There's a lot of discussion on this, people on all sides of the issue, so that's reflective in the comment. There is support. Some of the comments came in supporting smaller N size for subgroups, especially for the English learners. And if you recall, we're proposing a English learner progress subgroup of 10 and then 30 for the subgroups that relate to the M-STEP. So there's some support for that and there's some concern about that. And then there's a lot of support for the development of an accountability system for alternative schools. That's something we haven't talked about a lot, but that was something people were pleased with. There's non-support or continued discussion around how we're treating subgroups. We treat them equally. There's proposals out there that want different things. And then comments on proficiency growth weighted too low. Probably comments too on proficiency growth weighted too high, but I think that gets more wrapped into single A to F. So those comments tended to relate to that. Just a couple considerations. So delaying the ESSA plan and approval to September 17 does mean another year of school rankings or color scorecards. We can't implement a new system unless we know what the new system is. Obviously, that would be not showing integrity to the process to publish something we hadn't, put in place and said this is the plan. So without a plan, we stick with the old plan. And then I won't walk you through these, but just any new accountability system does have a number of implementation steps. You don't decide on it and then implement it immediately. There's a lot of detailed work. And that's all, regardless of how high stakes, even a transparency dashboard would require all of these things. What's in it? How are we going to, what are the business rules? Where are the data feeds? How do we do the results? We need to show it to districts. We need to make sure people can read it. We need to do technical assistance. So there's a lot of pieces involved in this. Again, kind of delving into that school quality student success component, we proposed it as including time spent in the fine arts, music, physical education, the teacher and school administrator longevity, student chronic absenteeism, and then that advanced college and career coursework that aligns nicely with our 10 and 10 goals and the Governor's Commission report. Based on comment, there is a lot of interest in adding instructional time with a library media specialist. There's an interest in adding post-secondary enrollment for high schools, and then more grade level specific indicators. So rather than that some of those things might be more applicable to certain grade levels, there is a decent amount of interest in removing teacher and administrator longevity from that component. There was a lot of kind of balanced support, non-support for inclusion of the arts and advanced coursework. So a lot of positive, and then people asking questions. And then there's, as you see here, non-support around educator longevity. That's been fairly consistent. There's not a lot of support for that. And then concerns about the weighting being too high. Again, I think there's another voice out there of the weighting's too low and it should be more of this, but in terms of what's come in and how we've coded the comments, that's kind of where it sits. Just some implementation considerations there. There is low data quality for some of those subcomponents, and we do have to look at what data we would need. And so the main thing is, and I think I've referenced this here, in order to talk about instructional time spent in the arts and physical education, we have to collect instructional time data, which we don't currently. We have a mechanism to do it, so it's not starting from scratch, but just flagging that that is a place where if we include that on a dashboard or in a system, we don't currently have the data sitting right next door where I can go get it and use it. So like with the suspension data that we talked about, if we have a reason, a policy reason for data to help us drive resources and supports, that's a good reason to have additional information. I think too often in the past we've just collected data, we weren't sure what exactly it was needed for, or it was needed for federal reporting, or it was needed for kind of specific mandates. I think here we want to make sure that we're asking what are we going to do with it and how is it going to help students in schools. And so we have a good rationale for these, but it is a component to be aware of. On the transparency dashboard, and here again people were reacting to the dashboard as a separate thing from A to F because that's what was proposed in the plan. And so there were a lot of requests for additional indicators, more about foreign language, more about physical education, health education, more about support staffing. Again, some of those would play into that conversation around the school quality indicators. So where are the librarians? Where is the, those types of things. And then we do just need to spend a lot of time with the development group making sure that we look through each indicator. We talk about how it's going to be measured, where the data is going to come from, how it's going to be displayed. So that's more implementation. This is not something we've spent a lot of time on in discussion, but just in terms of the comments that came in, these are those 3 additional types of schools that the ESSA plan does require. If you recall, this is my next slide, we aren't submitting methodology for those schools at this point because we want to align it to our overall accountability system, and there's not a clear answer on that. So these schools, though, comprehensive support are the lowest performing schools, targeted support have underperforming subgroups, and additional targeted support have very consistently underperforming subgroups. That's a very short way to explain it. We put out in the ESSA plan, we had some proposals about how we would support them. We don't know exactly how they'll be identified, but once they are, how we'd support them. And so there was support in the comment on needs and coordination through the ISDs, support for regional training, support for this whole child comprehensive needs assessment or the blueprint. Right, and so there was also support for differentiating those supports based on needs so that districts and schools really get what is best for their needs. That includes the district partnership model. Interest in continuing the blueprint for turnaround. So I think maybe that was a factual correction. We do still support the blueprint for turnaround as a support. And then if just a factual correction, I think there was misunderstanding, and this is probably historically in the past, these schools have not had as much freedom to choose what they want to do or need to do to improve. So if various programs are indicated as a need in that comprehensive needs assessment, the school can implement them. So we don't require the implementation of any specific programs or initiatives. It's based on the district's needs, their data, and then their identification of evidence-based practices that would move them forward. Moving into educator quality, there were the 4 focus areas: foundation for support, those strategic district and educator preparation, program provider partnerships, really focusing on our partnership districts here. And we, as we're starting conversations, with these districts, we are seeing that they do have staffing needs. They have needs around their workforce, recruitment, retention, supports, and it's going to vary by district. So that's really where these partnerships come in. In some districts, it might be we're having trouble getting teachers. In others, it might be we're having trouble keeping teachers. It might be pay. It's a lot of things. So, and then supporting that transition, and then professional learning, career pathways. And again, remember that equitable access focus. So how do we take those educator equity activities and really target them into partnership districts? In general, the overwhelming majority of comments were supportive of our approach to educator quality. There were suggested additions, and they fell into 3 categories. One was increased pay for teachers. So there's a lot of comments suggesting it's difficult to recruit and retain, and what can we do? So we hope to encourage, or we plan to encourage, differential pay strategies as part of the focus on teacher leadership and residency-based. And then we'll give guidance on how they can use federal funds to offer differential and incentive-based pay. But again, this is on LEAs to decide that's how they want to do it. Changes to teacher preparation. There were a lot of comments about we need to change teacher preparation, so shorter prep time, longer prep time, pay for student teaching, letter grades for EPPs, more requirements for EPPs, educator prep providers. So, and we talked about this, I think, last month at the board table, possibly. The laws governing teacher prep is not primarily ESSA. So there's this intersection here about the workforce, but it's not our primary mechanism to get into educator preparation. That being said, the overlap we see here is on those residency-based, context-specific teacher preparation, responsive to those district needs and targeted at our partnership districts, and may include pay for teacher residents through that residency model. And then again, ongoing work, and you heard from Sean and Sarah Kate earlier, ongoing work here independent of ESSA focuses on that continuous improvement of our educator prep program. So they are related conversations, but ESSA is not the primary vehicle to overall revise our educator preparation or make the changes we may want to make in our educator preparation system. And then supports for educators, comments around class sizes should be smaller for new teachers. We should focus more on educator evaluations. We should focus less on educator evaluations. And we should address supports for administrators. So we did elect to take the additional Title II Part A funding reservation to support administrators as we describe in the plan. So LEAs can continue to use their funds, their Title II Part A funds, to reduce class sizes or anything else, but that particularly based on local needs. And then we do want to continue to support the implementation of educator evaluations, which, as again we've talked about here, educator evaluations is another thing that is not governed by ESSA. So the work groups went through a lot of talk about in what ways do we want to use these opportunities to support educator evaluations, but also what else is important about educator quality. So particularly we want to look at professional learning and how that keys to the evaluation, but much of our educator evaluation support will happen, it's based on requirements in state law and best practices, and happens outside this plan, kind of like that teacher prep piece. It's not, it's separate. It's related work, but it's not ESSA work necessarily. Assessments, everybody's fairly familiar with this now. We're working on transitioning to the updated assessment vision by the 2018-2019 school year. So doing an RFP for new assessment tools that fulfill the vision and legal requirements, to transition the 8th grade assessment from the MSTEP to the PSAT 8-9, and that assessment system containing a required fall benchmark, optional winter tools, and a required spring comprehensive benchmark. Importantly, I want to clarify, this assessment will yield data that is comparable to current data and allows for continued trend lines. So while it is a update, a revision of our current system, it is not a change such that we won't have trend lines to look at. We received comments on supporting state funding for a benchmark assessment and also on working to retain that 1% cap on alternate assessment. And then the concerns, as you can imagine, because we've talked about them here, around change or modification? Do we need state assessments at all? How do we most appropriately test students with special needs and English learners? Gifted and talented assessment, how do we do that? You know, and we talked about this too, losing the benefits of a locally chosen and administered benchmark assessment. And when we start assessment, is it too late? I think this means in the whole continuum, starting assessment in 3rd grade, it's too late for early intervention, although there are the laws on the books around K1 and 2. So this is fairly common when you talk assessments as how the comments shake out. And I think assessment's one of those things where there is just a lot of thoughts on how we best do it. So that comes out when you do comment. Just a couple clarifications. As far as we know, based on that request for information process, there is not an off-the-shelf assessment product currently in use that will meet Michigan's assessment vision that the vendors want to sell us. So all of the vendors who came in and were interviewed said, we see what you're trying to do here, here's how we would handle it, and they all proposed some modification or a new product from what they have. So again, this might change at RFP time, but based on RFI, we don't see, that's why we did the RFI, to understand the landscape that was out there. This is a tough point to make because everybody doesn't like it, but at this point we cannot just end all state testing, and so some of the comment was just end all state testing. We have both state and federal law that requires standardized assessment to measure progress on our college and career standards. We also, I've talked about this at the board table, probably need to have a conversation about what role we would want statewide testing to play, even if tomorrow all those laws disappeared. Would we, you know, I think that's a good conversation to have. But at this point, we have 2 kinds of laws requiring this. So certainly if those laws change, that conversation is a different conversation. And then implementation, we really have to focus on professional development and help districts implement the new state assessments, particularly as we bring on benchmark assessments, and those are so useful for instruction and for progress monitoring, and as districts transition from their system or what they're using now and to this one, that will take a lot of professional learning, so we're really trying to keep an eye on that with limited resources and time. And then other comments, again, we received, this was that kind of other category that you saw at the front, just questions about clarity or formatting, non-ESSA related. We do receive some comments that are more generally like about people's views on public education, timing, what we should do about implementation, so we kind of put those in a folder for, you know, that's important, and we will keep that in mind, but it's not directly related to the plan. And then pending state legislation that may impact the ESSA plan, which we've talked about here as well, because obviously there's many conversations moving at once. Yesterday, the U.S. Secretary of Education released a revised template. We're looking at the updated template and supporting materials. It's not that different, and it shouldn't be that hard to crosswalk it, but there is some work there to understand exactly what they're looking for. And then public comment is actually still open through tomorrow, so if you haven't already commented, we invite you to do so. And
questions? Tom, please, and then Pam.
There'll still be a top to bottom, because we got to come up with the bottom 5%, right? So even if we don't do a to F or anything like that, there'll still be a top to bottom, right?
We would not, if we can agree on a new system, we would not run the top to bottom list anymore. We would use the new system to determine who's the bottom 5%.
But it's not magical at 5%. It is.
Well, the state law currently says bottom 5%. So
if we had transparency reporting
Right.
dashboard, we
Right.
would use that to determine.
And you would somehow weight it to come up with the 5%.
And
the
we'd
bottom
work with you
5%.
to do that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what I meant.
Yes.
Okay, so that would still be, and then as far as how that is going to be determined, is that going to be, as I understand it, it's kind of a black box that goes in, and it's nobody knows how that calculate. Will districts be able to calculate where they're going to be?
Yep, and that
be
was our
very
intention.
transparent?
That was one of the guiding principles
Good
we worked
point.
from with the
Okay.
accountability system the whole
Okay.
time. So
And-
moving to something more easily calculable.
And then finally, the benchmark assessment from last month, I expressed some concern, and one of the things I expressed was I was concerned about how it would be used. We're going to have, A, it's going to be more testing, B, it's centralized so that we're kind of knocking out the variability, like you mentioned, that was losing the benefits of locally chosen and administered benchmark assessments. So I think it's less local control. And C, I mean, I heard you testify in front of the House Appropriations Committee that the benchmark assessment could be used for accountability. And that's one of my concerns, is that we start using tests for things that they're not designed for. And so I know that it seems like it's a fait accompli, it's just kind of mixed in with everything. I'm going to hope to try to stop it at the appropriations level, because I think there's serious problems. I don't like the centralization of benchmarking. I think there's, districts, I don't care if we have a carrot that says that the state's going to pay for it, so, get rid of your individual benchmarking that you feel is best. But I also have real concerns about where it's going to go, mission creep. It's going to end up being used for things that it shouldn't be used for, and I have a real concern about it.
So, to clarify the use of it in accountability, one of the clear things we've heard about accountability for a number of years, literally, and it came up yesterday in district meeting, it always comes up, is, well, we're getting growth. And this is true. Low-performing districts, low-performing students might be making growth toward proficiency that's not yet demonstrated in proficiency. So there's been a clear interest in having better growth data available for state accountability or state reporting so we can capture that progress that students are making. So, yes, it has always been the intention that this would lead to growth data for accountability purposes.
But we
So,
could
for
say-
example, if
but
I'm-
the state
Go
could say, here's 10 or 15 dibbles and all these other different ways that you can have benchmarking. We think these are reasonable, so you could use these, any of these 10 or 12. And if you want to pay for it, then we'll say we'll pay for it. But I mean, I just don't
And it
understand why
wouldn't-
there has to be a
that's true.
centralized one.
It's, but that's true. It relates to, at the point of running some sort of accountability system, we would not be able to use that growth data in an accountability system. So if people don't want growth in accountability, then that's okay.
Yeah, the one thing we want is, so if I'm a third grade teacher and I started the year, here's where my kids were at. And a year later, now at the end of the year, what kind of growth did I get out of my students? And I think teachers want to know that. I think parents want to know that. And I think the issue is, can you do it in a way that we can use that data in comparison on a statewide basis? Certainly districts can do it, Tom, as you mentioned, individually. But if you wanted to use it as a statewide information and comparison, how do you do that? So that's the debate. So I appreciate the comments. Pam? I wrote down plan instead of Pam.
And my question is, I guess, just looking at the changes to the ESSA that came out yesterday, and we're hearing of states that are holding off submitting their plan, and Brian, you definitely articulated with clarity the importance of getting the plan in. Just any thoughts on yesterday, what happened yesterday, and what some of the other states are doing? Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the secretary is still encouraging, if you want to file, to go ahead and file in April. And the crosswalk is as she said, I think it's going to require some work, but it is something that can be done. We're still looking at the input we're getting. We're still taking input, and so we haven't made a final decision yet. But we'll continue to share with the board as we've heard. We'd like to file now so that we can begin to work with districts on what this all means and hold them accountable and move forward with the partnership model and other things. So, but we're still doing this in a thoughtful way and still gathering input. Eileen, please.
Excuse me. ESSA requires the state to weight academic factors more heavily than those showing opportunity to learn and post-secondary readiness. I personally support completely a measure for school quality that has, and I wrote the board an email, that has equal weighting with the academic factors and really does have the backup behind it on a dashboard system so that parents can say, it's really important to me that I can walk into this school and volunteer, and my school does that. On the other hand, my school is here in achievement and in growth. My concern, I actually support any system that's icons, gauges, dials, or letters. It's the consolidation, because I didn't agree with the weighting into one single letter grade that I find problematic. It was intriguing that only about half of the comments from the field, from what I can see, had that same concern. So I want to make sure that whatever you do, that there's clarity, that parents can look at. This is the school I dearly love, and this is why I love it. This is my school in achievement for third grade reading, and it turns out that the things that I'm looking at either exceed that grade or they are below it, and I want more of the school factors that will raise my child's achievement. And I don't want that single letter grade unless I can see a better weighting for it. But I also want to make sure that there's no dashboard system that is so confusing and so complex that parents can't get to what USDOE is saying is important. And the Secretary has 120 days to accept or reject an application, but unfortunately, and I do think we should submit it now. I think that you've got the template, the new template, so you can see whether or not it's legal. And if we submit it and it doesn't work, we're going to be back to base one anyway in September. But I think we do have to do it now. I've changed my mind on that. Thanks.
Thank you. Was that it? Anybody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Nikki and then Michelle.
A couple things. When you talked about the N-size group needing to be reduced, I have had significant amount of feedback that applied to special education populations. I know you said especially EL. I would be surprised if your commentary didn't come back with a massive support of the N-size being less also for special education. Is that the case?
I haven't deeply analyzed the comment, but I think Allison's nodding at me. So yes, when we say there's interest in subgroup size being smaller, I think it's been primarily driven by.
But we've also had input that it should be larger.
Yep, and this is a good place to, let me just clarify on process, and then you guys can have that conversation. This is a good place to remind that when we're talking here, we're really talking primarily about what's come in through the official comment. So I think official comment has picked up a lot of interest in smaller, particularly for students with disabilities, ELs. Some of the other conversations have been about larger, and especially some of the early stakeholder groups dealt with it should be larger. So we have, I would say on the whole, we've heard both sides of the story kind of consistently, but yes, right now the advocacy groups, particularly for students with disabilities, are commenting. So
I mean, N-size is the subgroup reporting, essentially. So if we have this strategic way of going about reporting an N-size, those students are just lost. They don't even exist. So I also have a problem with that, and I know that your commentary comes with like a significant concern in that area. So will that be reported in ESSA to the Secretary?
That there's concern. I mean, we have to show to the Secretary what we're doing, what the comment was, and how we addressed or didn't address it. So.
Okay. All right. So that at least we can reflect that here and then moving forward, correct?
Yep.
And then I was just thinking accountability when we're talking about it. We are accountable for educational outcomes too. I mean, I sort of feel like that's something we should be starting to talk about, what the State Board of Education is doing under its constitutional authority to improve educational outcomes. So I'm hoping that's something out of all of this we can be a little bit more specific.
Very good. Agreed. Michelle, please.
Thank you for all your information. You always give like a tremendous amount of information. I often have a hard time keeping up with all of it. But,
So do we.
I want to just clarify something that Tom brought up, so that I can, and then I have a question. So the accountability of the bottom 5% will still be based on standardized test scores because it has to be under state law.
Let me try to clarify.
Portion of it does, yeah. I mean, we're still going to look at other factors.
Right now, state law says, 1280C says you have to identify the lowest performing 5% using a metric. It does not specify the metric. It relates over to the federal plan, in essence, to our state accountability system, whatever that is. There's also federal law about low-performing schools, but I'm going to put that aside because that's the thing we're pausing on until we're sure about what we're doing here, because I'm less concerned about that. So 1280C says who's the bottom 5%. We will have to have a way to identify the bottom 5%. So if we end up with a dashboard, we'd have to use the dashboard and components of it, test scores and other things to come to an agreed upon who's the bottom 5%. If we use the dial, same thing. I mean, we'll have to take whatever system and use it to figure out who's at the bottom. And like the superintendent said, I think our hope would be that that wouldn't be based only on test scores. But we have to decide on whatever the main system is, so then we can say, and how do you use that system to get to a bottom 5 if the state law doesn't change. If the state law changes, we would still need a way to target our supports to low-performing districts and schools, partnership model, but 5% goes away, and some of the specifics about what happens goes away. So
The federal laws don't necessarily.
yeah, and again,
apply that
that's more about there's a pot of funding that goes to low-performing schools that I think once we have agreement on how we're doing our overall accountability, it won't be hard to, from there, say, and these are the schools who are eligible for these funds. Yeah, I know it sounds silly, but I'm just less concerned about that because that's more about being able to flow money and supports to schools and get them a certain type of, and it really aligns with our partnership district work. So in a lot of ways, it would be like, who's a partnership district? And how is that working? And work from there. So.
Okay, so that's helpful for me. And so, you know, and I have things that I would like to see on the dashboard, and I can only imagine how everybody has something they want to throw in. But I would really say to me an important and well-researched metric is class size. I think that is critical. So I think that needs to be on there. I also think librarians in the school are really important for literacy. So I would ask that be given a lot of weight because it's well researched. I've been looking at you know, the American Statistical Association, the American Evaluation Association, and other organizations that are expert in metrics and what's valid, what's fair, what's useful. And we do not give high-stakes standardized tests for grading schools a high rate of, you know, they're not supporting that. There's a lot of caution around it, using it very carefully. So I feel like it's going against the grain because everyone seems to be on the high stakes test bandwagon. But I have to point out that there's, even with the growth model, there are problems with using it because there's so many other variables that could impact the growth of a child who's living in Southwest Detroit as opposed to a child going up in Birmingham, Michigan. The access that they have to things outside of school that can affect their ability on standardized tests it's hard to control that it's just that school. And so I caution against these. I think there's all sorts of effects, negative effects that come up with the use of this, including teachers not wanting to teach in high-poverty school districts and teaching to the test and things like that, and putting things that are tested over anything else. So I'm hoping the dashboard, I agree with Eileen, that I understand that ESSA right now, it says it has to be the majority, but they're making it 49 and 51, and looking at other variables to counteract what, you know, the reality that we have to use these standardized tests.
Just wanted to point out class sizes on the dashboard down at the
it
bottom
is?
of school and culture and climate. That we added that just for you, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Vanessa, thank you very much. Certainly, we're going to have more discussion on this afternoon with the board's resolution on A through F and transparency reporting, so we'll continue the conversation then. Let's see. So you want me to do that?
Yep, because you're going into regular meeting.
All right, good. All right, so now the time is 7 after 12. We're going into a regular meeting. The quorum of the board is present. State Board of Education meeting March 14th, 2017 is called to order. We're going to vote to convene to go to closed session to discuss annual evaluation of the state superintendent. Before we break for lunch, as you know, my evaluation is on the agenda. And according to Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act, a public officer can request a closed session in order to consider a periodic personal evaluation. Therefore, I'll entertain a motion followed by a roll call vote. So moved by Cassandra, supported by Richard, that the State Board of Education convene in closed session at the request of Brian Whiston, Superintendent of Public Instruction, in order to consider a periodic personnel evaluation to the Superintendent of Public Instruction as provided in Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act. Marilyn, please call the roll.
Bechtel?
Yes.
McMillan?
Yes.
Pugh?
Yes.
Ramos Fontini?
Yes.
Snyder?
Yes.
Albridge?
Yes.
Weiser?
Yes.
Xyley?
Yes.
So we are adjourned and we'll be returning at 1:30.